back. Obviously, two big-time starters left the program. Just curious how those guys are developing.
Yeah. So anytime you lose, I think the talent that we had on the outside is going to be an interesting spring. Not only because there are new hats out there, but also guys are vying for a position, right, competing. And I will say that the guys that we're putting out right now, right, are competing for those open positions. It's competitive, right, and it's fierce. But every single day we're rolling out a new group just to give a chance to show what you can do as a one, whether or not you have it in your neck to be able to handle that situation, enact perfection when called on. And there have been a few guys that have been a little bit better than the rest, but all still a work in progress. Nobody's arrived. Nobody is a made man, and everything's up in the air right now. Everything.
Wanted to ask you about Jaden Harris and Brian. With Jaden, is he still a corner who's cross-training at safety, or is he a safety? And with Brian, Coach, could you give us some insight into how that process went, where he entered the portal and then came back? Had you and Coach Cristobal appealed to him to return, saying there could be a role for you?
Right. So Jay Harris has always been a nickel for us, not necessarily a corner. He played corner in high school. He's been a nickel. His secondary position is safety. So there are times where you will see him getting some safety reps, but his primary position has been nickel for us. He's a sharp enough kid to be able to have a focal point, almost a major in one area and then a minor in another, right? I always tell the guys, the more you can do, the more you're worth, right? And he buys into that sort of mindset, and so that's where you may see him cross-training a little bit. No different than really any other position on our team, right? Our backers cross-train as well, and even sometimes our D linemen. Back end is no different. You'd like to hone him in on a position, which he has been, but his secondary is going to be safety.
And with Brian, obviously entered the portal, then came out. What happened during that process?
So the kid enters the portal. You don't want him to leave. You talk it through, and you try to figure out what makes sense and where you guys can come together and meet at a point to keep him on the football team and be a positive production in what we're doing. And he's done so. You know, I think a lot of times when Cam Kitchens is making plays and raising a banner, which they're about to do, it's hard to sit behind that and see delayed gratification. As young men, delayed gratification is tough. As adults, delayed gratification is tough. But he's bought into what we're doing here. He understands that it's about the greater cause and what we're trying to get to, which is a national championship. And that starts with everybody knowing and doing their role. And he's been elite with that in terms of the spring football and the practices thus far.
What have you seen from Chris Graves and how he's kind of developed going into his second year?
Yeah, so Chris came in very, very raw, learning the defense, not only learning the defense, learning the techniques, right? So everything that happens to Chris is going to be almost the first time it happens in a learning experience. The good thing about Chris is that he's a competitor, right? So if he screws it up once, he's going to work his behind off to get it fixed. And he's doing that. Again, competing at the top of routes. He's made some really good splash plays, 2 practices in a row. He finished it off with a pick. And he's just continuing to get better on and off the field.
You mentioned that a couple guys have jumped ahead in your mind. Can you talk a little about who and why that they're...
As of right now, no, not necessarily going to delve into that, right? We want the competition to be competition. And I think competition breeds the best out of every single body, right? And so, including me as a coach, I'm going to compete against not coaches here, coaches elsewhere, right? Am I getting outworked by the coach at Maryland, right? Wherever it may be. And that's what we ask our kids to do, is just compete. Don't worry about where you are, work. And so that's where we're at with it. And I apologize for not being able to lend more information.
I'll ask a different question. You and Coach Guidry have been dividing the defensive backs, kind of corners and safeties. How are you delineating that, and what was the thought behind it?
So as of right now, I meet with the entire back end because we want to make sure that the corners and the safeties both all hear everything. When we get out to individual, there's certain different subsets, there's different skill sets that we want to work, and we want to be able to get into those things. It's tough to have safeties and corners in the same spot in an individual drill when your corners are playing press coverage and your safeties are playing half field. So what we've done is we've been able to split that to try to make sure that we get more of the detail, right? But for the most part, everything has been whole group. Coach Guidry's been awesome and invited help, and a guy who knows what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. And it's for everybody to buy in and do it to the best of their ability, including myself.
Is there any changes, like under, different from Coach Steele to Coach Guidry, maybe in terms of emphasis or scheme or anything that you've noticed that some major difference?
Yeah, they're different. They're different. Yeah, they're different, and not in a condescending way. That's not meant to take a shot at anyone. That's not what that is. But they're just different. They're Coach Guidry is very, very fired up. The emotion seeps out of him. You can feel the sense of urgency. He is demanding perfection, not only from the players, but from the coaches. He's a winner. You can tell that he wants to win. He wants to win about as bad as he wants to breathe. And when you have that, I think you got a good chance of being elite. We're not where we want to be, but we're working our asses off to get there. Excuse my language.
There was some times last year where it seemed like safeties corners weren't on the same page, maybe with communication, connectedness. How's that been this spring?
Yeah, and you know what's funny? That's exactly what it is. It's communication, right? Because we got 5 hats out there, and everybody's communicating, and one is wrong. Somebody can fix it. But when you don't communicate, it obviously is an issue, right? That was an issue at times last year, agreed. This, in the spring, early on, not as good as you would want it to be in terms of communication, but remember, everything's in an early install, right? Guys are learning, and so when guys learn, they tend not to talk, right? Because they're trying to figure it out themselves. But as practices have went on, our communication has been a lot better, which is lend to us being able to be a little bit more punctual and be on top of what it is that we need to be.
A couple more Terry Roberts and Devonte Brown so far, the new transfers. And just what did you see from them? Your first impressions?
Yeah, I'll start with Devonte. Devonte, long, right, aggressive, has done a really good job of playing the vertical ball down the field. He's one of the guys that he's able to make aggressive finishes, competitive finishes, 50-50 balls. He's going up and making that play, and that's something that we need down the field. He's done a good job there. Not yet where we want him to be. Still a work in progress. Still got to understand the schemes, techniques, and eye discipline. But he shows all the physical tools to get it done. He shows the competitive aspect that we want out of him. And at the end of the day, he just competes. He wants to get the ball out. He understands that the ball is the issue, which is the key at corner. Got to have that dog in you. Terry Roberts is different in terms of play. He's more cerebral, maybe not as aggressive. But still understands concepts, right? We're still working on trying to make sure that our eyes are in elite position and that we're able to play before the play is had. So we want to play proactively as opposed to reactively, seeing formation variations, seeing whether number 2 is on and number 1 is off or vice versa, seeing the split, all those things that help us play faster than maybe we are. So no different than every other corner. That's where those 2 guys are really working at in order to hone their skills, but both have shown the ability to play and win with. We just got to clean them up continuously all the way through spring.
Last question. We have a chance to ask you about him.
Yeah, Marquis Williams has been a pleasant surprise this spring. I hate to say that because somebody publish it, he'll read it, and he'll think his crap don't stink. But he is working his behind off, and we're asking him to be more of a cerebral thinker. He's got to talk. He's got to communicate. That boundary safety position, you're in the core, and it gets pretty hairy in there. All the movements, all the checks is all really on him. And he's got to give those communications to the corners, to the backers, sometimes to the DNs, sometimes to the far side safety. It's a man's position. And for a freshman to be coming in and handling it, tip of the cap to him. Is he where we want him to be? As I've said multiple times in this interview, hell no. But he's taking strides in the direction in which we want him.